for the district. I think this is something that, you know, in Cincinnati we could possibly be innovators in, is having a pre-assessment that makes sure no child that gets left behind from the beginning. Yeah. Because it's too late at the end of the school year. Right. They are where they are. Right. And I think that's an important part of the piece that we need to look at. And it's not that assessment is all bad. Right. You know, a lot of times people say that these tests are they're not education, and that is true to a large extent. However, if there's testing done beforehand, it can make the education, you know, seamless, and we can have bookends of assessments.
And I don't need to add to that because it would just be redundant, but I will say this: the act was good in theory. I think weak in practice, only because it left out a lot of unimmeasurable concepts or pieces as relates to what Alex just stated. And I think part of the education experience has to be a lot broader than taking a test, because every child learns different. And so when you're constantly teaching to a test, you're not taking into account the diversity learning styles of the students that education is meant for.
That's good that you said that, because this goes to my next question. Actually, it wasn't a question, it was just as you guys were talking, I just thought about it a moment ago. The OGTs. Okay. What's your position on the OGT? Would you, if you had an opportunity to change the OGTs where they would just be able to take maybe the ACT test and not the OGT in order to graduate, that will hold them back, where their class have, say for instance, example 2011, you had your group from Withrow graduated, and a student who went through the whole school year and just couldn't pass that science. Right. Because that's the number one, the science. Right. They couldn't pass the science. Our math. What would be your position on changing that? Maybe, you know, having the ACT or bringing something else in place for the state of Ohio so that they don't, you know,
well, I would have to
so much on that OGT.
Let me say that that was Governor Strickland's initial idea that he didn't get to implement. I think you have to have some form of instrument to determine what the child has learned and measured. I think the OGT has its place, but I think it has to be modified to again fit the individual children or child or student where they are. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that just because you graduate, like for instance, Alice graduated from Warner Hill, was one of our prima donna high schools. They educate well and they academically excel. I went to TAB, but in the end, we don't have any measure to determine where a child will end up, because it doesn't take into account their own individual drive, their own individual makeup, how education really becomes an important key for them. So all those variables sometimes have to be looked at, but I do feel that there has to be some instrument in place to determine what a child has learned beyond maybe the test, OGT, or the No Child Left Behind concept.
Thank you.
If I could, I think you must be clairvoyant, because that is what's about to happen in the state of Ohio, which is very exciting. The OGT, and I had to prepare any number of sophomores for that, and you do and you must, and it's on the report card, and people wanted to throw school systems into the marketplace and compare them by data. We are going to be moving away from OGT over the next few years, and OAA for our elementary kids. And we will be moving into what will be the biggest educational reform and change probably since the 50s or 60s. It's going to be bigger than No Child Left Behind. And what it is, it's a college career ready path that people are calling the National Core Curriculum. Okay. And this National Core Curriculum has been adopted by 46 different states. It's been something, frankly, that the business community and the university community has wanted for a long time. And it's finally reached kind of national levels. And what it says is that you do a lot less of this superficial survey education content. You do much deeper topics, stay on a topic longer, because the longer and deeper you stay on a topic, the more critical thought a child has to use instead of memorization, the more problem solving they have to do. And so we're going to be moving towards that. And as a matter of fact, in preparation for that, much of Cincinnati Public has college access preparation, both from what we do ourselves, but also our private partnerships that we have with a number of, like Project Grad and Gear Up and CYC. All those folks are helping do that. This new curriculum, in fact, something that Superintendent Ronan instituted in the last 2 years, is that we have all of our juniors taking the preliminary ACT. Now here's the word of caution. When our kids begin to do that, it is very likely that scores will go down. Largely because in this transition, our kids are not, we have 70% free or reduced lunch. We do not necessarily have every family that is already moving their child towards college, as you might find in the suburbs or someplace else, which is why the program you have is so important, because it opens up their minds and their dreams and what have you. So we're moving in that direction, and that is another reason why we're even going out for a levy, because we're going to have to buy all new books, and most importantly, we're going to have to end the digital divide that exists among our students, and purchase the kind of technology that this kind of core curriculum is going to require. So you've got it, you've nailed it, and you've figured out this is the direction. And we've been very proud of giving the ACTs early, because our children need as much experience and tutoring on that as possible.
Yeah, and that will help the kids, like you said, get prepared for college. Because a lot of them that are going into college right now aren't taking the remedial courses.
And the key is exposure across the board.
I would add, and this is my own pet peeve, I think you can see a correlation, not a cause and effect, but a correlation of less prepared students for college correlating with when we started doing this other testing. And when that became the focus rather than best practice teaching and learning, it's a direct correlation, I think. So it's something to think about.
I think you're right.
Before we move on, I want to let the wisdom of veteran board members soak in, but just one point before we get off standardized testing is I want to say that in my studies we've talked a lot about assessment. My graduate degree is actually in mental health counseling, and there's a lot of assessments that are done. And one thing that is critical is that you pay attention to multicultural issues when the tests are made. And I know that students who are raised in urban areas, they don't have the same experiences as other students. And so when you have a nationally standardized test, it can be dangerous, the language that's used. Some experiences, with a tadpole. If you've never been by a pond or a brook, you might not know what a tadpole is. And seeing it in the textbooks, it doesn't always do that good. So
whether a cup goes with a saucer, and in some families, especially mine, a cup went with a table. And so that's some of the terminology that we use, and then some experts will argue that when it comes to urban district, that if the children don't see themselves in the curriculum, they're not as inspired or motivated to learn. And so that's something else that has to be taken into account.
Thank you. Okay, another question. What goals do you hope to achieve if you're elected, Alex?
The goals I hope to achieve are to work well with the other members of the board and continue to be a voice for the people that put us there. I think that sometimes when people are put into elected positions, you get up on that higher level in the ivory tower, so to speak, and you forget what's going on the ground level. So my goal is to make sure that I stay connected with the families and communities in our city, and that I also learn from veteran members and make sure that everyone is working together. I know that we won't always have the same opinions and same views on everything because we represent a very diverse city, but we can still disagree without being disagreeable.
And you, Mr. Nelms, your goals?
What was the question?
Your goals.
You daydreaming
or
here?
No, I was looking at something else, but part of, I'm always looking to do something that's never been done before. And I'm one of 7 board members, so I only get 1 vote. Every board member have a passion for something about education that drives them to implement or introduce. Some things I've already talked about were part of my vision beyond the scope of education, as well as community and social engagement as relates to education. My goal is to continue the work that we do, continue to make sure that we're doing it in a civil, respectful, professional manner, and that we continue to hear the voices and the concerns of our constituents who vote us into office. And that means whether they're on the east side, west side, south side, or north side, we all work for those that vote us into office, and Alice would be a welcome addition. Me and Eve have a relationship from our first campaign. And so part of our role as board members is to learn to value each other's position, perspective, and then respect whatever decision is made by the whole board, because you're never individual, by the whole board, and then move forward with that particular issue and item. And so I have a few other goals, but I'm not at liberty to express them yet.
And you'll be able to express those soon, I'm sure. And you?
Well, I think besides the interpersonal and professionalization that we talked about regarding 4 years ago and the accomplishments we've had, my 3 focuses really have been financial stability. And I would say also wanting Cincinnati to be the leader in all education reform in this state, in this region. So I've embraced that. And also performance accountability for both our teachers, our support staff, and our administration. I want to build a performance culture, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. Now looking at these next possible 4 years, if I was lucky enough to be reelected, 2 focuses I think would be for me, and I think I can say this. I want to concentrate more on the rigorous and supportive, diverse, culturally relevant curriculum. I love curriculum. I'm a teacher, and we really haven't had an opportunity to spend time on curriculum. Only recently have we started to adopt new curricula. So that's a focus, and that's just even an avocation, if you will. But the other piece is that, very frankly, we have to find a way to have a path to excellence, because we're not going to be satisfied staying at effective. And finally, here's the big moment really for this district. Because this district has had to close schools, right size, and eliminate staffing positions, even this past year, 210 positions were not refilled for financial reasons and other reasons. But here's the reality. We believe, our teachers union and our administration believe that this year, because we have such a veteran staff and the changes in the retirement system, we could lose 200 to 300 of our 2,300 teachers. So in the next 4 years, in all reality, this board and our superintendent and this community will be recreating the teaching staff for Cincinnati Public. And so I'm very, very interested in how we're going to do something we've not been doing for 10 or 15 years, which is recruiting, headhunting, getting an international staff that is second to none for our children. So this is just a big, big opportunity for us to be looking at.
And can I add that one of the pieces to that puzzle is that we've started a assistant principal development academy to groom those principals. And I think we need to go beyond that. I think we need to look at succession planning across the board, so that those that come from the district, and part of our problem as a district is those that leave the district don't have anything to come back for or come back to. So we're trying to create an atmosphere where we can invite those that have a desire to give back to at least the Cincinnati Public School would be able to do that.
I think a good way to do what they're talking about of recruiting quality teachers is to start in our high schools. And when I was student teaching at Hughes, I was proud to be in the teaching and technology wing where we were grooming future teachers right there on Clifton Avenue. So I think that that's something we should make sure we continue in our district.
And I got just the thing for you after election day.
Okay.
That's good. Because those would be the students that know what is needed.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because they can relate.
Especially if they come out of Cincinnati Public and then they go to college, a local college. Because I promote college tours, and I have a special emphasis on HBCU tours. I'm a graduate of Wilberforce University, located in
Central State.
And I have my oldest son, he's at Norfolk State.
Okay.
And I think it's important that kids are exposed, for one, at a young age, and then also, if you can't afford to go out of state to go to college, don't try to force the issue when you have local colleges in your backyard where you can stay in the state of Ohio
or go somewhere
and save some money.
Absolutely.
This year, I've had so many kids from Cincinnati Public who wanted to travel out of state. And prior to that, I told them, you cannot wait till your 12th grade year to wake up and say, hey, I want to go to a college in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right on.
Unfortunately, it's not going to happen because there's so many other kids that want to go to that college that haven't prepared. So if they could just start in a younger age, when you do the assessments, maybe with the fifth graders, to find out who do you think is going to be the problem child, because you fifth grade